Well, I finangled it until I got one of my ears free from it, so as I didn't miss a word. I better get this bread started or I'm never going to get it done. We're making Veda's spicy tomato bread. We are. And I've got the ingredients down here. And I'm just going to put my camera down here so you can watch and listen to how much I mess up probably. But it sounds good, doesn't it? Kind of sounds like something Panera breads would have, doesn't it? So we're going to try, or I'm going to try. I hope I don't fail. Let's point you down. In this bread, it's calling for 2.5 cups of flour. So I've got my flour right here and my measuring cup. And I'm going to pour out 2.5 cups of flour. Plain flour. And I'm messy in the kitchen. Y'all are going to figure that out. I used to be fairly decent, but not anymore. 2.5 cups of flour. And with that, we need 1 tablespoon of baking soda. I have some baking powder. I'm sorry, baking powder. See what I mean? I get confused, so I better show you. Baking powder. 1 tablespoon. Of baking powder. Find my lid. A 3/4 teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to use my pink Himalayan. It says 3/4 of a teaspoon. And this one doesn't show. I didn't pull out the one that says 3/4, so I'm going to kind of guess at it. It's not going to. I believe that's about 3/4. Garlic salt, 1 teaspoon. I know I have it here. One teaspoon of garlic salt. I need 1/4 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Did I not bring it out? Of all things not to bring out my cayenne pepper. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Even when I think I'm ready, I'm never ready. It says 1/4 of a teaspoon, so again, I'm gonna, this one's not been opened. I am going to guesstimate. Because if I go around looking for everything this morning, guess what? It doesn't get done. That's why you're going to hear more about this recipe after the fact. Because if I do too much talking, then I won't get this done. So I want to do the recipe first. I'll do the recipe first. And then we'll talk about the cookbook I got it out of. How's that? I've had this cookbook since last summer, maybe. As a matter of fact, it's a group of cookbooks. There's several cookbooks by these people, so we'll get into that after this. But I got the cayenne pepper open. And how much did I say? Just 1/4 of a teaspoon. There we go. I think that's about a fourth. Oregano, 1 teaspoon. I have an oregano open. I don't know why. Again, I would have opened these beforehand had I known. Yum, yum. Throwing that away. How much did I say? A teaspoon of oregano. Sugar. We need 3/4 of a tablespoon of sugar. Thank you. Let me see. Three-fourths of a tablespoon would be about right here. Don't want to put too much, but don't want to not put enough. And because I like basil and anything that has tomato in it, I did bring the basil out. I thought. Yeah, right here. And I'm just going to add about a teaspoon. One thing about these ought to all be fresh ingredients and they smell good. So I'm going to add about a teaspoon of basil, which it doesn't call for, but since I like tomato basil. Sift the flour and the baking powder and mix in the salt, garlic. Well, I should have sifted the I should have sifted the flour and the baking powder together. And I have an old-timey sifter, but I had this one close at hand. So I'm just going to sift it through here. I've not sifted anything in forever. Look at all the lumps in this. You can see why they tell you to sift it. This one is very lumpy. We always use the other sifter I have, the old-timey one where you turn the knob. And it's probably a lot faster than this one. But look how pretty. It looks like snow once you run it through the sifter. Totally different look than what's in here. I'll bring you back after I get it sifted. Finally got it sifted. Look how pretty. And no lumps. And now it's saying to add your cheese, which is a cup of cheddar cheese. Cup of cheddar cheese. And a cup of Parmesan. Cup of Parmesan. And what does it say then? Drain the juice from the stewed tomatoes, saving 1/3 cup. I'm just going to use my sifter and this measuring cup right here and drain my tomatoes. And I decided to go with the garlic, olive, and basil whole peeled stewed tomatoes. I believe I got these at the Dollar Tree. Anyway, I'm going to drain them. Probably should have used something else. The juice is so thick. I don't know if the juice will go through this or not, but it might. Don't want to make a mess. See, it's awfully thick. It's draining. This is some thick juice. So I think what I'll do, I'll just hold it and drain it. How's that? I think we're supposed to have 1 whole can, it says. I'm hoping it's this size can. And you're supposed to save your tomato juice. And I just sat that right down on my island so it just keep draining on my island, didn't I? Now I got a mess to clean up. But we're going to use this whole can, it says, and it's not. I'm going to cut these tomatoes or mash them up as I put them in here, mainly because I don't think you want them totally whole. It doesn't say to use whole tomatoes, so that's why I'm thinking these need to be kind of squished up in here. I don't mind doing it with my hands, especially since my hands are clean. I'll be washing them after this, though, won't I? And I'm not pureeing them or anything like that. I'm just... Get the lid. I'll have to do that different next time. These tomatoes smell great. Did I say they had basil in it? Let's see if they had basil in it. Yep. Yes, ma'am. Basil in it. Plus, I added some, so this ought to be really good. Oh, did I get it on me? I heard it squirt. And these stewed tomatoes have their own, have quite a bit of... move this over to the sink. Like I said, I'm chaotic in the kitchen. Okay. It says to save 1/3 a cup of it. It says to mix 1/3 cup of tomato juice with your 1/3 cup milk. Well, guess what I did? I measured out 1/2 cup of milk, so I'm going to have to put some in something. 1/3 cup milk. Let me see. One-third cup milk. And 1/3 cup tomato juice. That got me up to 2/3 a cup. You pour that in. Now combine the eggs and the oil and stir well. The oil is 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. I need to go ahead and preheat my oven to 350. And actually remember to turn it on. I turned it on. 1/3 cup vegetable oil. And 2 eggs. Got that. Add this to mixture and stir. Then it says add the chopped tomatoes. Okay. Wouldn't you think It's all right. I put the chopped tomatoes, and I see if I went back through it, I would have known. It looks kind of thin, but I put them in first. It doesn't matter. They're in there, aren't they? It says this batter will be thick. And I'm still using this fork right here. I'm going to get me a spatula or a spoon. I'll just get this little spoon. Am I crooked? I didn't bring you back down, did I? Says this batter's supposed to be thick. I'm thinking maybe the juice of the tomatoes might be a little much. We'll find out. But anytime you use stewed tomatoes, this is how my batter looks. See that? I'm debating, should I add a little more flour? But I'm going to err on the side of following the recipe. Bake the batter in a loaf pan for 1 hour. They say it's going to be thick. Do they mean this thick or thicker? But boy, don't that look good. And if you were here, I can think of variations of it, but I'm trying to stick to the recipe, something I don't always do. Getting my loaf pan out. And I'm just going to line it with some parchment paper. You see me right, I'm wrinkling it up. Since I found that out, it makes it so much easier to use parchment paper. Well, supposed to. Of course, I've not used it in a loaf pan. I just use it in cookie sheets mainly, but I thought, well, I'm going to try this one in a loaf pan. Let's do that and just let it fall in. How's that? It should hold it in place. Well, Angie didn't like how that was doing, so I'm just going to spray my pan. It works great on cookie sheets, but I was still struggling, so. And maybe it's the size of my loaf pan. I don't know. Anyway, I'm keeping it real. You'll see it. Like I say, it's join me in the kitchen, and you might see something you want to try. Getting the bowl cleaned out. Look how good that looks. Now, I just have to wait on the oven, and I'll put it in there 350 degrees. 350 degrees for 1 hour, and then I'll bring you back. I gotta clean up my mess. Well, while I'm standing here and waiting on my oven to heat up, I thought I'd bring you back and tell you about the cookbook. It's called The Treasury of White Trash Cooking by Earnest Mickler and Trisha Mickler. And this is just one of their books. I have White Trash Cooking. I have, it's called Hot Flashes and Sinking Something. The kind of recipes I grew up with in the South. That's what this book's about. It is. And it has all kinds of fabulous stories. That's what drew me to the first one. This one just happened to have the tomato bread recipe I wanted to try today. But that's the book. And I got a lot of my thrift book. Actually, the first cookbook that I came across, I think I got it at the thrift store. And I fell in love with the stories. and the recipes. This one is called Foot Washing Prayer Meetings, Creek Baptisms, and All Day Sings. And I hope I'm not doing anything to copyright anybody, but if anybody loves cookbooks with stories, especially kind of brings you back to growing up, these do. Let me find you. Well, I finangled it until I got one of my ears free from it, so as I didn't miss a word. But she had already started. Loomy said in a not-so-sure way, "Oh, honey, your ears show it too. It's red as fire." Iris came back. "That ain't necessarily from the heat of the dryer, darling. I want you to know that's for sure." Lummy shot back just as quickly. Must be in a beauty parlor. That's what we used to call it. And Omi's a hairdresser, so I can picture the kind of stories that these characters and true characters, family members of them, would tell in the beauty parlor. But it has so many funerals, wakes, and cemetery cleanings. Like I said, I just read you a little piece. Let me see. And a lot of their family recipes. Ain't that the truth, honey? They ain't no changing it, Rosetta. I got away from the wake night and I wanted to tell you what I did. Then I gotta go. Else you know who'll be screaming again. As usual, me and Willard was the last to go home. But before I did, I went back in there, lifted the lid, and told Edna Ray I was so sorry it had happened that way. Yeah, that's the way we talked back in southern Georgia, because I grew up in Georgia till I was 16. My dad's from Southeast Tennessee. So this book just brought me a lot of joy. It did. This one and the other ones that I have that I'm going to introduce you to. The stories alone are worth the cookbooks. But the cookbooks have fabulous, and sometimes to me not so fabulous recipes. If you still cook possum nowadays, we got some possum recipes too. I ain't never had possum, don't plan on it. But they got a quick Loretta pie, a May Ben Robbins Oriental oven purloo. And one thing I loved about the cookbook too is all the pictures. See all these pictures? It just brought me back to my childhood, and the recipes brought me back to my childhood. I remember tent revivals. I don't know if this particular picture's for a tent revival, but they talk about them in the books. I remember tent revivals. They were some of my most favorite to go to. No, this wasn't a tent revival. This was a funeral. But they talk about tent revivals, family reunions, barbecues, fish fries, and picnics. And they just tell all kinds of stories in here. This book seems like it's so much more in the way of recipes because it's like a collection of them. But oh, the stories it'll tell. Even shows processing meat. I'm not going to say it tells you how, but it shows you pictures. But the Treasury are white trash cooking, Earnest, Matthew Mickler, and Trisha Mickler. And from what I remember, it says, filled with all the recipes from the tasty victuals served up by the folks in the backwoods, bayous, hills, and sticks of America. The Treasury of white trash cooking will whisk you into the farthest reaches of the deep south and satisfy your hankering for its finest. And they say this This collection of old favorites brought to you by Earnest Matthew Mickler and his kissing cousin, Trisha Mickler. And if I remember correctly, Matthew Mickler died at a fairly young age. He was in his 40s. You can read about him. But boy, the cookbooks, the memories it brings. And the pictures. So if you're ever interested in some deep South cooking, the way Mama did, the way your granny did, what you grew up eating, perfect book. But my oven's turned on. Heated up. Not got my bread in yet. It's going to take an hour. I'll see you back on the other side. I came back in here. The timer's about to go off on me. I've been talking to her. She said, leave it in the pan for about 10 minutes. And we discussed which knife to cut it with. And I got my butter together. So I'm going to put you on the tripod. And we're going to see if I can get this out of the pan. Did I have any of that on film? I hope so. But in case I didn't. I got my bread out without it breaking. I did. So now I'm going to flip it over. It's a very heavy, heavy bread. I will tell you that. Very heavy. And Naomi and I were talking about which knife should I cut it with, because she didn't want me breaking it up at all. So I think I'm going to err on the bigger one. And I love end pieces, so I'm going to have to take a piece. Let's see if this knife cuts it. Oh, look at there. Ah! Can you see it? Can you see it? Look how pretty. Ah! I keep telling y'all it's the little things in life. I've never made a fancy bread. Cornbread. Whew. And I got my butter right here, so we're going to take a taste test. I wish Naomi was here. Naomi, I know you're going to be watching this and my camera's a little low. I've already sent her a picture of it. She said, I want some. So, I should have left you down here so you can watch me put the butter on it, but I didn't. Naomi said she wouldn't even need butter with it. But well, I need to cut it all the way through. I didn't get the bottom part. It's been on this rack. Like I said, it's a heavy bread. I won't put butter all over it. Not too much. I'll let it melt on there. It's kind of soft. Anyway. There it is. I'm gonna take a taste. It's good. It's good. The one thing I would suggest different is go with the smaller can of stewed tomatoes. I don't think they meant for me to use that larger one, but it's just real moist. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will leave a link to where you can get the book, but I'll also try to take a picture of the recipe, and that way you'll have it for yourself. It's good. My kale salad's waiting on me. That's what I'm having with it. So until next time, we'll talk soon.